All right, everybody, we are live. So we have the pleasure of having on. This is the 44th anniversary this year of the release of the original Friday the 13th. A lot of you know Halloween was the first horror film I ever saw at 6 years old. Friday was right after that. So I mean, these movies have a ton of meaning to me. So we have had two Jasons on the channel. Well, technically Kane, we got a few words with for a few minutes at the HorrorCon, but we have CJ Graham. We have the honor here of having the first Jason Voorhees and a very accomplished musician, composer. So without further ado, let's bring out Ari Lehman.
It's me, everybody. JT, how are you?
I'm
It's
good,
me,
man.
Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, The Boy in the Lake. The
That's
machete
right.
is ready. As you can see, this is my portrait machete, which I love, from Doomsday's Crypt.
That looks
Yeah,
awesome.
JT, how are you? How
I am
are
good,
you?
my friend. I am
There's
feeling
so
good
many great
today.
things to talk about, but we got to start.
Absolutely.
We got to start with one thing, which is to say, uh, get well, Bill Moseley.
I
Today,
heard what
Bill had
happened.
some silly, oh geez, but we all want to send him love and get well wishes,
Absolutely.
because he's really one of the absolute pioneers of, I would say, modern horror. Of course, all of his work with Rob Zombie, but
Oh yeah.
more to the general point, he pioneered the relationship between horror celebrities and horror fans.
Yes,
And
that's
he's just
very
one of
true.
the best, just one of the most loved people. He's always been very just amazing person, and we just want to make sure that he knows that we're thinking of him as he gets better and gathers
Absolutely.
strength. Because a bicyclist ran into him while he was on a leisurely walk when he was down
Wow.
there at Carolina Fear Fest. So
Wow.
very often we'll get there the day before. And of course, Bill, and here he is, 72, and he decided to go for a nice walk, which speaks volumes about him and the kind of person he is. He was, saying,
Oh
boy,
yeah.
I'll enjoy a nice walk here in the Carolina weather. I mean, I don't know all the details, but I'm hoping that's what it was. And then, of course, some careless individual who did not.
That's
Who did
crazy.
not stop. So anyway, I hope that more important than anything, more important than the whole anecdote and everything, is most important just to say, reach out and say to Bill, hey, get well, brother.
Very well said, Ari. Because
Yeah.
I mean, what a career he's had, and it's first of all, it's
Well,
great to hear how big of a horror fan you are, because that is all we talk about here is just
if it
horror
wasn't,
nonstop.
I'll admit it to you. When I've had such an interesting journey,
Yeah.
um, in the sense that I started out and I was wondering, do I want to become a jazz musician,
Yeah.
a jazz piano player, or do I want to do movies? And the experience that I had in Friday the 13th was amazing and wonderful and changed my life and was very transformative. And especially working with Tom Savini and Sean Cunningham, which we'll talk about.
Oh yeah.
But ultimately, I made the decision that I wanted to be a musician. Why? Because the whole process of movie making, where you say one line and then they move all the equipment, you basically go back to your well, in those cases it was cabin, but that kind of thing. But and then you come back and say another line. And I love rock and roll. I've always been a musician, and so there you go. My experience with it has been just an amazing thing. But when I first was alerted to the fact that people out there were interested in meeting the first Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. And the way that happened was crazy. I got an email that said, "Hey, did you sign this photo?"
Okay.
And I had not signed it. It was a forgery.
Hmm.
Okay. It was a forgery,
Interesting.
bro. And that's what, now this is after I had gone to New York University after getting a scholarship for Berklee School of Music. And I went to the Center for Media Arts, and I ended up in the world music scene, which was very vibrant in the 90s, having studied jazz with Vladimir Shafranov and Joanne Bakin and all these great teachers that I had.
Yeah.
But then I went on to become a world musician. So I was playing, like, I actually got to perform in Africa. I performed with some of the top reggae bands. I opened for
I was
Steel
just
Pulse.
gonna say, I read that. That's great.
It was such a fun experience, so mind blower. But what a contrast. I come back to the United States. The world music trend kind of ended. I was looking around for different things to do. And here comes this letter, and it says, "Did you autograph this?" And I said, "No." And the guy said, Yeah. He said, "Well, I just bought this on eBay for $50."
Wow.
So I said, "Well, and long story short, eventually, Tony Timpone invited me to be at the first convention. Why it was Chiller Theater Fangoria convention at the Meadowlands. Where are you located, JT?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you were born in Brooklyn. I was born in California, but my parents moved back in the late '80s, right after I was born. I was a year old. We moved back to Long Island. I've been in Long Island most of my life.
Go. I thought I heard that familiar accent.
Yeah. There's nobody. Everyone
with.
knows. Yep, everybody hears me that finds the channel stuff. They know I'm from New York after I start talking for a few minutes.
Well, that's a good thing. Should I go sideways here? Is that going to work better? No, it's not.
That would be the same. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Hey, the channel actually just hit the 2-year anniversary, like yesterday or today. I've been doing this 2 years now, and I'm still figuring out everything with cameras, editing, all that shit. It's just like the musical journey; it never ends.
No doubt, no doubt.
You're constantly. You can never perfect a musical instrument, like your abilities on it. There's always more to learn. There's always more that you can improve on. There's always more theory you can learn if you're into theory. Like it's pretty much the same thing with anything, creative.
Sure.
There's no end to it.
Well, the thing, the wonderful thing is when we have the emotional content, right? If you've got that emotional thing, you can always learn technique. Technique can be learned.
The emotion you have to have it.
Yeah. And so as a rocker, you're playing music. It's that visceral interaction with people immediately. You're playing a song and they're looking at you. And, if you suck, you know it. But if you're rocking, wow.
You feel it.
Just
Absolutely.
like as soon as you open up that channel, it just is a exponential interaction. So it's like it comes back at you 10 times. And wow, when you get in front of some of these crowds, we've had the honor to open for Twisted and Ice Nine Kills and Incantation and Nuclear Assault and all these bands. I mean, my gosh, it's such a thrilling experience, and I never take it for granted. But so I was driven towards that experience. But what I was trying to point out about Bill, and let's also talk about Sid Haig and Tom Savini and who else was there? Elvira.
Okay, Elvira.
When I first came
Texas Chainsaw 2 is my favorite in the series, actually. And and a few people in the chat said Chop Top, is such an icon. But then what Rob Zombie, like you said, did for his career with House of a Thousand Corners, and Sid Haig also.
Thank you for
bringing
saying
them
that.
back.
No. Thank you for pointing that out, my friends.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Chop Top, of course. That's the character that's Bill's iconic character. Of course, yes, absolutely. And what a creepy, unforgettable character. Oh my god.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
With the scalp, with picking it, with the skull plate. It was so out there, and it's still Toby Hooper who did the original. It's so different tonally, but I can't. I don't know.
The second one, oh
great.
my gosh. And with he has like 2 chainsaws and
yeah, with Dennis Hopper, that he has the chainsaw battle with Leatherface.
I love the
fun
ending.
One.
I love that ending where they climb up and then there's a shrine and they kind of bring the whole story together. Yeah, that's a cool, very cool one. But yeah, unforgettable, outstanding character. Yeah, absolutely. So when I was there, I just saw the interaction of Bill and Sid and Kane Hodder, of course. Kane Hodder, Tom Savini, Elvira. And I saw how they, and I just said, wow, this is a whole new world of just meeting the people. And I guess I'm kind of I love absurdist comedy.
I'm the same way. I like dark humor too. I'm a very dark humor person. A lot of sarcasm.
Yeah, well, I love like Britcoms, like the Mighty Boosh, and I love Monty Python, and all that stuff.
Python is just classic.
So I always saw so much comedy in the situation of being, I mean, especially for me, because I don't really seem like, I'm under 6 feet tall. I'm not a big guy, I'm medium size and rather friendly person, portraying, the monsters, these guys, having been, of course, this guy, it's an absurd and surrealistic adventure every day, and that's why I embrace it when I see, or when I saw, and this is really also, let me point out that Betsy Palmer herself was at the first Fangoria Con that I got to go to, and of course Mama Voorhees, Betsy Palmer, Pamela Voorhees. So they put me in this room and said, okay, the people are going to come in. And there were so many people, I couldn't believe it. And they said, just go in here. And so I was at a table, and there's Betsy Palmer, she's at the table across there, so I'm like, wow, and of course there's no way that she could know who I am.
Yeah.
But of course, I know who she is, because I look, I look like this now. I don't look like the little boy.
And you're not in the makeup either, that you probably remembers more because of how grotesque. She had
no idea, even like, because we never met on the set, of course.
Yeah.
Because every scene I'm doing, I'm in the one. She wasn't there on those days, so But I was so eager to meet her, so I just go over to her table and I just said, "Mama," like this, and and this tells you a lot about Betsy. She gave me this big hug. She just took me in her. She gave me this big hug, and then she put her hands on my shoulders and said, "Now who the fuck are you?"
That's classic.
Who the fuck are you? And I looked at her and said, "Well, I'm Ari Lehman. I played them." Oh, and then okay, so she gave me another hug, and we became really good friends. She gave me a lot of advice. She was and I just, what energy, what a wonderful person. She was a Scorpio. Like my mom, she shared the same birth date as my mom, November 1st. Oh, wow. So we just got along. We just hit it off. And she had the ability to bring just the best out of people in that Scorpio way. I even remember at that show, a big guy in a big leather jacket, like a real grease. and he had a scar going all the way like this, you know, and
Yeah.
and he came up to me. He was like, "Oh, I'm a big Jason fan." And I was like, "Dude, yeah, right on." And he goes over to Betsy, and I'm like, you know, because I could see he was really emotional about meeting her, you know.
Yeah.
And she looks up. The first thing out of her mouth is, "What a lovely scar. May I touch it?" And she
Really.
reaches
Oh.
up and she caresses his scar, and the guy just melts.
Oh, I can imagine. She
He's
just always
practically,
seemed like the nicest woman in interviews I've seen, documentaries. I mean, the whole His Name Was Jason documentary. That's one hell of a documentary. You're in it, everybody's in it, and just to hear everyone through the whole journey of this series, because I always ask guests that I have on, especially bigger series like this, nobody ever sees this happening. Like when you guys were all making that movie, and how old were you when you portrayed Jason?
oh, I was 14,
Okay,
JP.
so
I was 14. So
yeah, so
for me,
nobody
it was
saw
such
that
a
coming.
unique experience, just a wonderful, fun experience. I didn't have that thing of, is it going to be a big movie? Is it going to be a hit? Like, I had been in a movie for Sean Cunningham
Yeah.
the summer before that was about playing soccer.
Mhm.
So in my mind, it was like, this is a cool summer job, you know. And the first movie never even really got major distribution. So who knew what was going to happen? But I knew that I
Yeah.
liked working for Sean and that they paid me and it was a job. And my parents were like, "You have a job? This is great."
Yeah. And then famously he asked you, "Can you swim?"
Yes, yes. Well, no, I
And that
mean,
was
that was my audition.
for Friday. That's great. Just can you swim?
Really, the audition was that he called me and I picked up the phone, because if I hadn't picked up the phone, he would have called someone else from the cast of Manny's Orphans. They would have, because initially it was
Yeah.
supposed to be his son, and they said no, no, no,
Yes.
no, and it was like the Life commercial, Life cereal commercial. Remember?
Yes.
Mikey, get Mikey, he'll do it. You
Yeah.
know, Ari will do it. You know, so I was like, sure. So yeah, and who knew that, as you're reflecting, yeah, who knew what was going to happen? I
Yeah.
think that's all because of the fans. One thing you should know: Friday the 13th was like, first there was the soccer movie, which was turned down,
Mhm.
basically,
Okay.
and then there was the first version of Friday the 13th, which did not contain the final sequence, which
Yeah.
again, Paramount Pictures said, no, this is a woman gets her head chopped off and a little boy drowns. It's you know, we need something else here, you know.
Yeah. Something at the end there, just to give a final scare. I know Carrie's ending was very influential on that.
Precisely. Well, Victor Miller always jokes, you know, we stole from Halloween and they didn't buy that, so we stole from Carrie and they bought it. But
It makes sense.
the ending, you know, it's multi-layered how they came up with that ending.
Yeah.
Certainly that was an influence. And basically it was Tom Savini saying, let's bring back Jason.
Yep.
Sean was reluctant about it. But when the executives at Paramount saw that version,
Yeah.
they test screened it on their secretaries and their family, because it was off season and they had to test it right there
That
in
probably scared
Hollywood.
the shit out of everybody.
That's exactly what happened. People were so frightened, bro,
Yeah.
that they were crying and why did you make us watch this? So they said, we got a hit, and they distributed it in 800 theaters across the country, which is
Yeah.
unprecedented thing.
Oh, for
As
them and that type of
this
film, yeah, that indie film. I mean, such a low budget.
exactly, they took a film of yeah. If you look at the budget and the distribution, it's an amazing. It's an amazing dichotomy. You know, it's like that. But really, Sean, I was working with him in Germany. I heard this all straight out of his mouth. So that's what happened. You know, they were very anxious that it was going to be sold, and then they loved that ending sequence so much that they said, what the heck? Usually they would distribute in like 40 cinemas, and they did it in 800.
800. Wow,
so I
that's
think
incredible.
that one reason why Sean was saying that is because people often say to him, I mean, in all humility, to saying to him, what a great film Friday the 13th is. And he said, well, it was a good film with great distribution.
I would agree. I mean, the way they were able to market that and distribute it is just mind blowing. And I think even after
I
the
never
first
take it for
few
granted. I
movies-
love it. Whatever. It's the people's imagination. Look
Yeah.
at the shirt I'm wearing. It's Jason, but it's a beehive. He's got bees. I mean,
That's great. I know
there's
the,
so
the
many
things that
tattoos.
people
And
make, tattoos people get about this series. That's how much this series means to people, and myself included. Like I said, this
precisely.
was like the second, third horror movie I ever saw was Friday, and then I binged because they would show the first 8 on television. I'm 35, and maybe when I was 7, 8 years old, I would catch the binges and the marathons on TV, and that was my introduction to Jason, and he's still my favorite slasher.
And if you
Out
look
of
at
all
it,
of them.
the character Jason with the machete, okay, and the hockey mask and the machete, right? Okay. Well, you say to yourself, of course, that comes in part 3. However, there's a very effective foreshadowing in the first Friday the 13th. If people will recall, where they kill the snake in the cabin.
Yep.
And Bill has a machete. And Bill is standing there like this with the machete after having killed the snake, and all the feathers are flying.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and that is a nice little foreshadow. I couldn't have been intended, but
Was
it
that some
works out.
Simpsons? Was that some
Yeah,
Simpsons
it
kind of
works
shit
out.
right there, man?
It works out
Yeah.
perfectly.
Although
And
I always hated that they killed a real
I know
snake.
the actual snake, yeah, which is a big reason a lot of people don't watch the movie Cannibal Holocaust, is because of the
Oh my God,
animal deaths
that
in
was
that.
directed by my friend
Ruggiero-
Ruggiero.
I love
Ruggiero
Ruggiero
Deodato.
Deodato.
He
I'm
was
a huge
oh.
Italian horror fan, and we got a few on the followers and other content creators in this community that are huge
Did you
Italian
ever
horror
meet
fans.
Ruggiero Deodato?
I didn't get the chance to
Well,
talk to
they
him.
invited me to be the awards, to give away the awards
Oh wow!
at an awards ceremony, okay, which in Italy, okay, and okay, so the thing was run by him, okay, by Ruggiero Deodato, but there was also Mario Bava was there. The Bava
One of my
brothers were
favorite
there.
directors. Argento, maybe.
Thank
Fulci.
you, Dario Argento. Dario Argento was there with his wife and his daughter,
Fulci would have passed.
and it was all the people, all the Fulci, all the Italian, and so of course I don't speak Italian.
Yeah.
But so I get there, and there's this big opera house, bro. It's this opera house, right, in Italy, and so they're like, it's like the dress rehearsal, and so I'm like, where's the script? They go, no scritto, no, we don't have a script, no script.
Yeah, you just go wing it.
So where's the teleprompter? Oh no teleprompter. And the funny thing is, this director, it's like out of a Fellini movie. The director's way up in the balcony, and he's yelling into this microphone, and there's a speaker that's like twice the size of me, and it's like in our ears. He's like, "No, there is no script." And it was like, we're like, "You don't have to scream into the microphone." So anyway,
it's like we got a big ass speaker right here by us.
Yeah, he says there's 40 awards or 14 awards or something like that. 14 awards, and you're gonna give it out. It's gonna be broadcast all across Europe, all across the world, and it's gonna be great, and you're gonna do fine. And I was like, but I don't speak Italian, you know.
Yeah.
So I ran around the town. I'm asking everybody I know, tell me a joke, tell me something. So I'm like, buongiorno. I finally managed to do it. The curtain goes up. They're all out there in their freaking tuxedos and gowns and everything. Oh, I don't know how I got through it, but I did.
That's a
It
great
was
story,
actually a
man.
lot of fun. Robert Englund was there with his wife. It was crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it was so
Yeah.
sad when I heard that Diodato passed the end of 2020,
He used to
2022.
do the conventions, and especially like I would see him at conventions in Germany, for instance. And there's
Yeah.
a famous whenever we would, I would see him, so I would pretend to sing La Donna è mobile.
Okay. Yeah.
And he would come and we would sing and we would sing, and
That's great.
there's a film of it on on YouTube, on
Well, you
social
too. I
media.
gotta check
Ian
that out.
Mazzaro. Yeah, but I was very,
Great.
I love Argento films, and I love Deep
Yeah.
Red, and I love
Classic.
Phenomenon is one of my
Phenomena
favorites.
is great.
So when I met Argento, you know the scene in Phenomenon,
Mhm.
at the very end, there's a little boy in a lake.
Mm-hmm. I even said in my review, I reviewed all his films up to opera, and I said this is so Friday the 13th right here.
Hello, that's
Yep.
what I thought. So you'll
Mhm.
love this story. So I met him the first time. It was in New York at some big event at a hotel. So I see it's Dario Argento. So I said, "Oh, it's such an honor to meet you. I must apologize that we stole your idea from Phenomenon with the little boy in the lake." And he
Yeah, that
goes,
came out years
he
later.
goes, he goes, "No, tu è primo, tu è primo." I said,
Yeah.
"What?" And he said, "You were first."
Yeah.
And then his translator explained to me that Phenomenon came out in 1983 and Friday the 13th. So
Yeah.
basically, I walked right up to him and accused him of stealing from.
That's great. I mean, yeah,
And he
I
goes,
saw
and
that movie for the
the-
first time. I was like, this is very because people don't know in the chat, like in that movie, there's a deformed child who plays into the reason plays into the whole ending with Daria Nicolodi, which is
well,
such
the
a
ending
underrated
is
actress.
then there's a little difference. He does go a step further, because if you remember, the engine, and then there's like a fire on the water too. So he goes a step further. So it's like, he took it to the next level.
And his Argento usual flair,
Yeah.
and operatic style, which is one thing I just love.
And
about
he couldn't resist that dark water with the flames on it in the little place. Yeah.
But that's great to hear. That's one of your favorite Argentos, because I mean, I think he has probably the greatest stretch of masterpiece films, from his first film, Bird with the Crystal Plumage in 1970, to Opera in
I
87,
love opera.
88.
Nobody ever talks about opera.
It's my favorite Argento
Great.
film.
I love that movie with
It's
the birds and the little
needles.
the
That's so inventive. That's so creative.
Yeah, and of course, you've heard what he said about that, right?
What about the needles?
He said the reason I did that is because people say during a horror movie it's okay to close your eyes, but
okay,
I'm trying to tell the viewer, no, it's not okay.
You gotta watch.
Okay, you have to watch.
And yeah, that's such a great idea, to have someone forced to watch brutal murders of the people they care about in that way.
Is like Fellini meets Hitchcock on acid.
That's a great analogy description right there. Because
I mean, if any listener, I mean, any viewers, just watch Deep Red. It's such fun movies. All of them, all that.
Probably
stuff.
My favorite giallo is Deep Red, because I don't consider, even though opera is I feel like it has a more slasher feel.
You gotta love. I mean, not everybody, Yeah, I think Deep Red is very accessible and very.
And Suspiria also, I feel, is the
Suspiria.
film that gets most people into Argento or Italian horror in general.
If you're gonna get into the Suspiria trilogy, then you got to realize that it's about witchcraft and alchemy.
Yep.
And once you realize that it's about witchcraft and alchemy, then you start looking for the signs, and wow, because there's
It's a
There's some amazing, just even the use of color and just everything. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, I mean, Inferno is such a great sequel, and the score. He switched from Goblin, which is we were talking right before we went live. We're both huge progressive rock fans, which is great. I mean,
Claudio
yes,
Simonetti.
yeah, I've tried reaching out to him, and I talk to Greta every now and then. Greta, she's great, and
Sure, sure.
waiting to hear back maybe from Claudio because I'd love to talk with
Claudio
him,
was
pick his
just, they
brain.
just did a show in LA last
Yeah,
weekend. It was
I
mobbed.
saw a
They might
post. I
be
saw a post.
touring around now.
I think they are, and then that's great because I mean, Goblin just the whole. I mean, Ennio Morricone, who did the score for his first three films, Argento's films. I mean, he's legendary composer, but
Yeah.
what a brilliant decision it was to pair Argento with Goblin.
Yeah, I agree. I got to go backstage at there was a festival that was Phil Anselmo had a festival in Austin, Texas, and it was the first time Goblin came out and did the live score to the movie, and they
Oh,
had
that's great.
they did all that stuff. And Claudio invited me to go backstage, and he had all the vintage synthesizers, bro. He
That's
had
awesome.
he had made sure he didn't have any. There was no sampler of a synthesizer. It was like he had all the vintage synths.
Yeah,
It was badass. And
no,
then
that's great.
when they were playing and Housecore Fest, and I saw him and he saw me in the audience and he waved to me, and that was like my biggest fanboy moment.
I can imagine, man. I mean,
I was like,
just seeing them. I would love to see them live, and especially how they've been doing, playing the whole score to the movie like straight way through. But
oh,
I'm
it's a blast. You gotta go, man. You
yeah, I
gotta
gotta
go.
definitely check it out and
Please.
get to a concert of theirs, and one of yours of your band, and which brings us to music in a way with Argento's next film after that, Inferno, in the trilogy, the Mother of Tears, Suspiria trilogy, was Keith Emerson from ELP, who composed that
Oh my
score,
God.
which leads into progressive rock, and we want to hear all about your journey with music and where
Well,
that
I was
started.
a big Keith Emerson head. Yeah, in high school, man, I loved Keith
Yeah,
Emerson.
ELP's
I loved Rick
great.
Wakeman, and
Yep.
you know, that's how old I am. I remember the big debate: who's the best? Was it Keith
Yeah,
Emerson
the
or Rick
keyboardist.
Wakeman? And then, of course, I got into King Crimson and everything. But
Love Crimson.
I had really studied jazz at New York University. I had a great teacher in Connecticut and New York. And so I had really studied jazz. After leaving NYU, I started playing in an African band, in a band from Nigeria, West Africa.
Yeah.
Now, I was interested in learning about world music, but also it was just a professional thing. There had been a lot of times the labels would have bands come over, but they couldn't get uh, all the people's visas. So very
Okay.
often they would need somebody to have, like a keyboardist. So I
Yeah.
was a keyboardist and background vocalist for quite a few West African. And later I even worked for Tough Gong Records. I worked for Interscope Records. So I was doing that whole kind of thing, and which was wonderful. And
Yeah.
now, at one point, of course, that kind of died down. That's when I got invited to that Chiller Theater Fangoria show at the
Yeah.
Meadowlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
That's
was
great.
amazing. So I looked around and said, wow, there's a whole market here. And that's how I came up with this idea. First, Jason. But having been a world musician, jazz musician, it took some time. I had a lot of help from various members of different bands that were already touring, and sometimes they would be like, I had help from musicians from New York and Chicago. And
Yeah.
finally, I landed in Chicago, put together First Jason. We recorded our first album in 2009. Jason is Watching. So
That's
that
great.
got a lot of love. And, that songs like, Jason Never Dies, Machete is My Friend, Sink or Swim.
Just the way that
You
you were
Better
able
Run.
to play and the horror and your background with that and with Jason into what you love with music. is
Well, it took a
excellent. Like
minute,
that's awesome.
JT. It took a minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something authentic. Now, I had a good friend when I was at NYU, who who although I was a jazz musician, but he was the lead singer of a punk band called Reagan Youth.
Okay.
Dave Insurgent, and he was an amazing friend of mine. And sadly, he's not with us anymore. But Dave would bring me to the rock shows, so I got to see Bad Brains. I got to see Dead Kennedys. I got to see
Great band, the Kennedys.
White Zombie with
White
Rob
Zombie.
Zombie.
Yep.
And I remember feeling very square seeing Rob with Sean Yasalt up on stage at CB's, and oh my God, they looked like they had landed on stage from Mars. Like,
yes.
their clothes and just especially Rob, the way. And although we were all there to see, I think, Bad Brains or one of those bands, but I do remember that, and it was quite a scene in New York at that time. So, but as I said, I ended up in world music. But flash forward to when I'm trying to, think of ideas. I'm very fortunate that the punk metal scene is so open-hearted and open-eared and gave me the chance that they did to take my sound, and instead of just being like, I'll do something like the Misfits, or I'll do something like Rob Zombie or Alice Cooper or someone else, I've found a distinct sound which really incorporates all of the things that I've worked with. People always say how it's a metal sound, but it has that little bluesy quality, not unlike Motorhead, let's say. So
I've heard a decent amount of tracks here that you put in your posts and reels on Instagram. It sounds great. And
Thank you.
Your primary instrument that is keyboards.
It's a guitar. That's right.
The guitar you play
I
on is
am the
great.
evil wizard of guitar. That was another decision that kind of characterized First Jason. And so that way, as a keyboardist, it lends a whole other different vibe to it. Now, of course, my keyboard sounds like an electric guitar or bass. So but then again, I also have a great guitarist in the band. He's called Eddie Machete. And we have a drummer named Bass Amp. And he's, so these guys are just amazing and wonderful musicians who have helped me develop my sound. And so we just put out a compilation called Killing It. And of course, we're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. One thing that helped us a lot was when other bands reached out to us and, helped us with our vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got help from Incantation. John McKenty invited us to Carolina Chainsaw Massacre. And then Spencer Charnas of Ice Nine Kills. He asked me to sing on their Friday the 13th song, and then he sang on one of our songs called The Scapegoat. So if you're an Ice Nine Kills fan, check out First Jason The Scapegoat on YouTube, and you'll see Spencer is even in the video because he's so cool. So we got to play, and we got to open, we got to play at events with Corey Taylor. And so a lot of good stuff has been happening with the help of other bands. And we're going to be back at the Ice Nine Kills event in Danvers, Massachusetts. That's called Silver Scream Con. That's coming up. And we're at a bunch of events all year. But
for anyone in chat, I have Ari. Follow Ari on Instagram. It's in the description, and his band website with the calendar with all his dates and stuff, so you can follow all that in the description.
Thank you, G. Yes.
Of course. And so who are some of your biggest influences music wise?
In terms of music, man, well, as I said, I love King Crimson. I love Jimi Hendrix. I love, I come up out of jazz from the jazz tradition. I love John Coltrane. It's Coltrane's great. It's probably not shocking, I'm a
Miles
big
Davis
Miles
has some
Davis fan. I saw Miles Davis
amazing albums.
live. Santana. I'm a big Santana fan. But I'm also a big Testament fan.
Okay.
and I love King's X.
I've
Uh,
heard of King's X. I've heard probably a few songs of theirs over the
I
years.
love them. I mean, they're just quintessential, amazing. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's I love
I mean,
Soundgarden. I
I
love
mean, with someone who was played world music and stuff also,
sure.
it seems you just have a love for all types of music. I'm the same way. There's very little music genres that I don't care for
Yeah, it's
or
not
that I
about
can't.
genres. There's
Yeah,
good
it's just
music
if it's good
everywhere.
or not. Yeah, if it's good, it sounds good. I'm down. I like it.
I mean, the cool thing about metal is that in metal you have bands like Sepultura and I don't know, Primus and Tool. So
Primus
there's
is
a
great.
lot of
Tool's good.
there's a lot
I've
of
seen both of
different
them.
you know um, genres that come together in metal. So
Yeah,
I would champion metal as you can find punk in metal, you'll find hardcore in metal, you
yeah.
find hip hop in metal.
Find classical, like we were saying, with
Oh my
progressive
gosh, yeah.
rock alone. I mean, with Steve Howe and Yes, and then Steve Hackett from Genesis,
And Dimmu
classical pieces.
Borgir,
Yeah,
when
Dimmu
they play
Borgir is a
with
great black
with
metal band.
with the orchestra. I saw them with the orchestra at Wackenfest in Germany. They took the stage
That's
with the
cool.
orchestra. I mean, yeah.
In Flames is another great melodic metal band. In Flames has some
Oh yeah.
great guitar harmonies. Children of Bodom has some great stuff. Now you play
Sure. All
multiple
those bands are
instruments.
great.
You play multiple instruments.
Well, really, I'm a keyboardist and a singer.
Okay.
I am the lead singer for First Jason and keyboardist. So, I mean, I can, mess around on some other instruments, but, I found that
Yeah.
it's best sticking to what I do. And I love that. And now we're working on a
So that's
new
all that
album.
matters.
It's time for a new album.
Right.
People have
There you go.
loved, like we did Lord of the Lake, where we have Voorhees is the name and Kill for Mother. And then we went on to do songs like our song that uses the words of Mama Voorhees, and that's called
That's
Look What
cool.
You
That's a
Did.
cool idea. Look what you did.
Well, check
That's a
out
cool
that
idea.
song. It's called Look What You Did. Look what you
That's a
did to
cool
him.
idea.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It works. It works. Totally works. It totally
Yeah,
works.
I know. And
You know.
that's the great thing that you just this role that just birthed this, this character, this iconic slasher villain. I mean,
Well,
we
I'm
don't have
very
that.
lucky, man. I'm very
Yeah,
lucky, and I don't take it for granted.
yeah.
We very often, like we just did last weekend in St. Louis at a big movie theater, um, we will screen the film and do a kind of commentary alongside, either after the band plays or before a bunch of bands play,
That's awesome.
depending. And so I've really grown to appreciate the piece of work that Friday the 13th is, and
Yeah,
so many different diverse elements. Of course, after watching it so many times, and
of course.
and we're able to have so much fun with it still. It's a great kind of it's not too long. So it's
Yeah.
just the right,
Yep. The 90 minutes, that nice average runtime.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
and we do celebrate the legacy. I mean, especially when Mama Voorhees comes in, and we do a trivia game, we do a drinking game, we do
Yeah, you just make it fun, and
yeah.
that's the why we do this, right? That's why you play music. That's why people are into movies. We talk about them. It's fun, first and foremost,
Well,
and that's
fun
a
is a
great.
very important thing,
Yeah,
JT, because if you look all across the world, what is it that people love us in this country the most for? And that's for movies
yep,
and rock
entertainment.
and roll and sports.
Yep,
That's what we
correct.
are loved for. And why? Because that is the sign of a civilization when we are getting to say, hey, look, everything's fine. We can all get along together. We can all prosper together. Let's have fun. Let's talk about, you know, comedy and horror and music and just thrilling excitement and wonderful stuff, because that's what life should really be about.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Like, that's the whole reason I started this channel, is to have just a platform to connect with other people who are big horror fans. I mean, music is my number one passion. It always will be. But I've, in a similar way, been able to merge both of those together on the channel. I do a lot of horror movie and film score covers and stuff. I've been playing
that's
keyboard.
awesome.
I've been playing keyboard a lot more than usual. You know, I'm guitar is my main thing. I self-taught myself at 11, 12 years old. I said I went to the Crane School for a year, continued playing classical, and just
so
never
you were
really had
playing
lessons.
classical guitar, bro, with the whole
yeah. Like I could play "Moved for a Day" by Steve Howe. Yes.
Oh man,
I'll send you some videos afterwards.
Oh,
if you want to check some out. But yeah, like some of my biggest influence, like I said, Steve Howe from Yes, John Petrucci from Dream Theater is a big influence on my playing.
Dream Theater's great. Love Dream Theater.
I've seen them live a few times, and just I think they're some of the most technically proficient musicians like that are out there. And also from Long Island, from New York. Yeah, I mean, it's got in the water.
New York and Long Island always has had so much respect for the prog and for the dope fusion musicians. And
I mean, Dee Snider was from, he actually grew up on Freedom Street, right in my town in North Avalon. He grew up like on the street 5 minutes from me.
Dee is amazing.
Yeah, I never had the pleasure of seeing them.
Music and horror go together hand in hand, because I mean, you can make any scene into a horror scene, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have the right music, like you could have, if you have a little child walking down the hallway and you can hear a little party and they're singing happy birthday, you know, that could be. But if you just hear a violin going
and it changes it completely.
Don't go down that hallway. You know?
Yeah, I mean, the way you shoot something with the angle and stuff, and then the music that you throw in there to get an emotional response, you can make anything scary or creepy and stuff. And
without the music, movies gotta have music.
I mean,
Jaws. You know,
that infamous
or
score.
Friday the 13th.
Yep, the sound design too is so important. That's one thing as a musician I always listen to a lot when I watch films. Is the sound design I listen for.
The sound design of Friday the 13th in particular is very kind of jarring. Like it lulls you and then jars you. It's very well done. Whoever did that sound.
And Manfredini's score with that, like combined with that.
Yeah, Harry Manfredini, absolutely. He created the score, and he created the iconic sound of Jason Voorhees. That famous sound.
And such a great way that he did it. He just spoke "kill mom" into an echo or a reverb machine, something like that. Threw some echo on it, and that's it.
Well,
and
that's right. You got to think
iconic.
that in 1979, when he got his new digital reverb unit, that was pretty amazing. So it was like also the size of a desk.
Yeah.
So you know how people are. They're going to be, oh man, I got to make use of this. So he was actually motivated by the Eastern European composer Penderecki, who did the, if you'll remember, from 2001, A Space Odyssey, when they're all looking up at this big, obelisk. And you hear the little boys' voices. That's Penderecki. And so what they're doing is they're saying one syllable.
Yep.
In that case, it's the Vienna Boys Choir, and they're all singing one syllable, but they're 1/4 tone apart from each other.
Yeah.
So it creates this cluster sound.
Yeah, that's I just love when people get creative with recording.
So Harry was motivated by Penderecki. So he said one syllable. So he just said, kill Ma.
Yep.
And somehow it came back through, he processed it through the 1970s reverb.
And then look just how that even, just how iconic that became. And it's just so many things about the original film that, I mean, Jason, you as Jason, is that iconic ending and stuff that is one of the most, one of the best horror endings I'd say there is.
And just the whole premise of a film being at at a summer camp. That also became very popular.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Very
always
quick.
cite. You mentioned Mario Bava being at that Ruggero Deodato thing. Mario Bava is probably my favorite director of all time. He has the most films on my top films list. I
That's a
adore
good call.
Mario Bava. Yeah, I love him and his film. Have you ever seen Twitch of the Death Nerve or Bay of Blood?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That is the film I always cite as the film that molded and led to the slasher film.
Well, definitely the kills. There's some very similar.
So brutal, yeah, very. Oh yeah, Friday 2 rips it off directly with the spear through the bed.
Yeah,
right from that movie. But that had it wasn't a summer camp, but it was a similar by the bay and stuff, and it had some adolescence there, and it definitely had a lot of things.
Sure.
And Halloween, of course, added to Friday the 13th.
Well, how do we
Christmas.
arrive at Friday the 13th? You're saying through different films. One you've got to take note of, and we always use this as a good trivia question. It was a movie. So I'll do it the way we do the question. The movie is very much like Friday the 13th, okay? Mm-hmm. And it takes place, instead of taking place, it's about a woman who remembers the death and commemorates the death of her daughter who drowned in a pond every year on the same day.
Oh,
so it's very similar, right? But it takes place, instead of taking place at a summer camp, it takes place at a wealthy woman's mansion and her manor. Okay.
That movie
sounds
is
called
familiar.
Dementia 13.
Okay, yep.
And do you know, I don't want to wait. Do you want to see if anyone listening, does anyone know who is the world famous director who directed Dementia 13? Do you think any of your...
Let's see, chat. So there should be some
people. Does anyone know the world famous director who directed Dementia 13? Okay, I'll give you another hint.
I got to do a review on that movie soon.
The world famous Italian director. Italian American. Okay. It's Francis Ford Coppola. It was Coppola's first movie that's a big success for him, that got him a lot of attention, and it was and it's just a wonderful film. Even the whole movie starts with two people in a boat. And it's a woman and it's a man.
I gotta rewatch
the man is rowing like this, and the woman says, Don't, your heart. Don't forget about your heart. And he says, oh, yeah, you wouldn't want me to die now. Then you wouldn't get any of the money. And she says, don't joke like that. You did bring your pills, didn't you? He says, oh, of course he has a heart attack. And he says, oh, the pills, I left them on the beach. There, so he has to throw his body over the side. And that's how the movie starts.
I have to rewatch that movie. I haven't seen it forever.
White boat. Oh, it's great. So I think that the final sequence indeed seems to have some relation to that. And also the whole idea of the story of a little boy communicating with his mother from beyond the grave. Yeah. But then again, also Psycho. Psycho is the mother communicating with the little boy from beyond the grave, or the grown-up boy, as it were.
And we know Manfredini was very inspired by Bernard Herrmann's score for Psycho. I mean, it's very, very inspired. But Manfredini found that way to just make the violins screech.
Yeah.
In a way that's just
yeah.
very Friday. That is just screams Friday. As soon as you hear the score, you know it from Friday the 13th.
Well, it does. It sounds like Herman meets John Williams' Jaws, kind of.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. So before we wrap up, anyone in chat have any questions for Ari? And also, I want to end with, what are some of your favorite horror films? Bring it back
Or
around
should I
to
ask
horror.
them questions? Well, we
Whatever.
can wait.
We
They
do
can
whatever.
say if any questions, but I'll tell you, I'm a big Robert Mitchum fan. So I love Night of the Hunter.
Night of the Hunter's a great 50s film.
Which is
55? 53?
56, I think. And it was Charles Lawton's only directorial effort. And it has a very horrific element that runs throughout the film.
Feel too.
So it's
Very
not
surreal.
necessarily a horror film, but it has very horrific elements. Like, I mean, you know, it's the whole thing I mean, there's even a scene with a girl in a car at the bottom of the lake, if you recall. That girl is Shelley Winters. So Shelley Winters is so it's an itinerant priest going across the country, killing wealthy widows and taking their money. And during the Depression,
it's very dreamlike too. Very surreal feel to it. It feels like a dream when he's chasing after these two kids.
That's right. That whole sequence on the lake. That's one of my favorite moments in all of cinema history. But you know, I love other movies. I love Young Frankenstein.
Great classic movie.
I'm a big Hammer fan. I love all big F.W. Murnau. If you haven't seen Faust by F.W. Murnau, check out Faust. Because everybody's seen Nosferatu and the other ones, but you got to see Faust to really understand Murnau and his whole trip. I love the original Svengali starring John Barrymore. I mean, I could go on and on. I love.
That's how I know. It's just there's so many. There's so much.
If we're talking
stuff.
slasher, it would be Hellraiser series. I love Doug Bradley's work, and I love Clyde Barker. I love that whole. Again,
Candyman is probably my favorite. He didn't direct it, but one of my favorite.
Candyman would be one that I would say absolutely petrifies me. Because I grew up in a city.
Yeah,
I grew up in Chicago and New York, so when you grow up in a city, just that whole vibe.
You get it. Yeah. You know that vibe. You know that location. Exactly. It works very well as an urban horror film.
Yeah.
And the score by Philip Glass is just phenomenal. We got a few questions here for you. Does Ari think that The Town That Dreaded Sundown from '76 was an influence on Friday the 13th? Now I know the killer
certainly,
that had,
absolutely on Brother Sackhead was directly influenced by that. Although I don't know what those writers have said in respect to that, but it definitely seems to be a connection. And then again, we've got to remember that one of my favorite series is Mad Max, and they had the Humongous who wore a hockey mask too, right around the same time. So there you go. But yes, that was definitely an influence.
Nice. And we have another question here, then a fun one to wrap this up. Do you collect physical media?
Do I collect physical media? Well, I do have some vinyl and stuff that I love. I'm not a big collector of things because I'm always moving around and stuff.
Makes sense.
But I do have books that I love. For instance, I have the annotated Frankenstein, Mary Shelley.
That's cool.
Original edition. Everybody should check that out. That's Leo Wolf book with all the illustrations and everything. I love that. It gives you a lot of insights about how the book Frankenstein was written by Mary Shelley, and that's probably the piece of media that I love, and it just seems to so much.
It's great that we all have those few movies or books or anything like that, or songs that just are our favorites, that just are like comfort
Well, if you look
at
at the
this point.
original Frankenstein, there is a connection with Jason in a way, because at one point, because he can speak, and at one point when he
Yeah,
realized, he says to Dr. Frankenstein, "You must create a female for me." And of course,
yeah,
initially, Dr. Frankenstein is like against it. But the way that he convinces him, he says, "I'll go to South America and live in the woods, and no one will ever see me, and I'll just live in the woods, and I'll be a monstrosity that'll be shunned and living in the woods," and, kind of like Jason.
yeah, ostracized away from the community.
Yeah, he says specifically that they can't look upon me because I'm so,
Yeah.
but I don't want to hurt anybody, so I'll go and live in the woods.
I mean, people have, and actually the woods, that brings us to our fun little last question here from chat. Who do you
Okay.
like more as a creature, Bigfoot or the Yeti? Pat being
Bigfoot
random.
or the Yeti? Oh, wow. Oh, no, there's a tie. You can't. That's like, come on. You can't. Isn't
That's that's
Bigfoot
regional.
and the Yeti? Wait a second. I don't know if you know this, but the Yeti is just Bigfoot when he's on vacation.
Yep.
He likes to go skiing.
He likes being the abominable snowman.
He goes skiing, That's what it is. It's like, Bigfoot, by the way, isn't so tall. Okay. He's
Yes.
actually small, but he has huge feet. And the thing is, he's very embarrassed about his height. So when somebody discovers him, he says, "Please, just don't tell them, keep."
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. Keep my secret. Don't worry.
Yes,
We're cool.
exactly. He
And
has
that's
huge
why we don't
feet.
have
A tiny
footage.
man with huge feet.
And that's why we don't have a body of a Bigfoot yet. I mean, that's a good
Thank
explanation,
you.
man.
Exactly. And he
Great,
ducks
great.
when they take a picture. He just ducks. So, where is he?
That's great stuff. Everyone in chat, thank you so much for joining, Ari. This has been a blast, man. Thanks so much for coming on, and great conversation. It's been great talking with you. If
Thank
you
you,
want to hang,
JT.
you want to
Great
hang on.
questions, bro. Great questions. It was a lot of fun.
Thank
Remember,
you.
everybody, Jason never dies.
That's it. And like I said, in the description, we got the website for First Jason, Ari's band. So definitely check that out. Upcoming tour dates. If you live in a city or area where he's coming, definitely check it out. And you can follow him. And Instagram is also in there. And all right, everybody. Everybody have a great rest of their day. And Ari, if you want to hang on just for a minute and afterwards, and thank you again. All right, everybody. Take care.